Thank you for sticking around. Sorry for the delay. We have our 1984 Ghostbusters panel here right now. Let me bring out Mr. Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, William Atherton, and Ivan Reitman. Come on out, guys.
Thank you. Wow, fun day, huh? So nice to see the next generation.
I'm going to go back to that other camera.
Kids and grandkids. It's going to be exciting, really exciting. And loved I've got about 500 patches now from all over the world. And all the kits and equipment look really good today, really is. I'm proud of you all. Thank you so much.
Dan. So, as we were saying in the previous panel, this is the day, the 35th anniversary of Ghostbusters. Ivan already shared some memories from the debut of that film. What do you guys remember from the opening, from actually getting people to see the film? After you made it, like the opening weekend, what do you recall from that time?
Recall driving around and seeing lines around the theater and looking and saying, well, that's screening number 1. We'll see if they're still there after number 2 or 3. And I think all of us did a cruise wherever we were and went to where the movie was playing. I was in LA at the time.
I told them earlier how confident and cocky we all were. And while we were making the film, and we had a real strong sense of where this was going to go. But we still showed up on Friday night to make sure there was somebody actually there.
Yeah. Well, you never know in the picture business, but we thought we had something here that was, that was unique and that would work. Everybody who read it from the very beginning, even my sort of inaccessible first script, which had a lot of the movie in it, but there were things there that we couldn't use and threw out, but everybody understood the concept, what we were going after, and we're all here today because of it.
Ernie, how about you? What do you remember about the debut? People's reaction to Winston.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working. I did a movie called Space Hunter with actually I've been produced the year before, and I remember it was nice. The movie didn't really do business, but there was a magic about this movie from the time I read the script and got the part. We were in New York rehearsing, shooting in New York. Some of the scene was a build-up, but you weren't sure what it was. And then when it opened, it was like it was electricity. I mean, the song kicked off, and suddenly it was everywhere, including my apartment, which I had on Pico Boulevard in West LA, and fans would show up and knock on the door. It was crazy, but it was just suddenly it was like a breakthrough, and it was just a different time. It was very exciting, very exciting.
William, were you prepared for the world to fall in love with Walter Peck?
I was greatly surprised and gratified. Asking about remembering when it opened, it was making it, I have to tell you, it was such a joy. Because, I was a New York actor at the time, and my vanity was on stage and Broadway and things like that. And I did movies that did very well critically, but didn't make a lot of money. And I felt, pretty much the artiste. But when I began working on this movie, there was an electricity and a fellow feeling that was absolutely unique. And it created its own art. Being on that set was such a joy, and seeing the movie for the first time, I went, yes, that's what I remember. That's what I remember making this movie. And that, I tell you, and for an actor, that the bus only hits you once with that. And the bus really hit me hard with that. So so if everybody fell in love with Walter, I kind of fell in love with Walter. I mean, I kind of felt, he's the guy with the inhaler on the 7th grade in the playground, and he finally got something, and he wasn't going to give it up. That's kind of how I felt.
I think he's one of the great antagonists. I mean, he's sort of apart from Gozer, the villain of the story. But in a way, he's right. You've got these yahoos running around with their unlicensed nuclear accelerator on their backs. He's from the EPA. He's there to protect us and give us clean air.
Well,
can you bring it back for Walter?
Yeah, but I mean, with Ivan, giving the platform, it's the director's medium and the writer's medium, and there was the platform to create that, and that doesn't happen that often. That's unique, and so you don't do it by yourself. You do it because somebody gives you a seat on the bus, and that essentially was it.
Today, of course, with the present administration, Walter Peck would go, it's all been deregulated. You guys can write a ticket, man, whatever you want. You tax successful in the basement, no problem. It's commerce.
I hope with all of Walter's great virtues that feeling everything that's going on now, he wouldn't particularly care for it, but maybe I'm hoping for the best.
I feel like if Venkman hadn't been rude to him with that magic word scene, they could have just shown him what they had. Okay, these guys seem to know what's going on. But it was that clash that set it off.
You didn't say the magic word.
But when you act a scene with Murray, you're kind of, as an actor, your method involvement is terror. Because you're in a big scene, you're trying to get through that and see what is going to happen next. I was very grateful for Bill.
Was that a scripted moment, the magic word thing, or did he make that up?
I can't remember. I think it was in the script that the magic word was, yes.
Dan, can you talk to me about, you went through various versions of the script, and then Ivan was telling us in the previous panel about Harold joining on and the crafting of the final version. How did the casting of actors lead to the tailoring of each individual character, even choosing which part you wanted to play? Did you feel that Ray Stantz evolved once you knew you were going to be the guy who had it?
We needed that great comic leading man, and of course, just knowing that Billy was going to do that character, you're going to shape a certain voice, knowing that you got him to use. And Harold and I were really kind of more utility players, just in terms of delivering exposition and that. Our performances are earnest, and
I totally disagree with everything he's saying.
Harold's voice and skepticism came out, and then we hired a great actor to play Ernie, the everyman who comes into it, with a little just a sense of bewilderment, he played so beautifully, and then became a founding member of our group. So sure, whatever actor we hired would shape the part, and of course Louis Tully, the Moranis part. Once he gave voice to that, boy, we knew we were off to some a stream of comic gold there.
I think Ivan wants to disagree and weigh in on what you just said.
When we started thinking about the three characters, because it started as three, and we always thought, okay, well, Spengler's the brains. He's the brains. And
Harold was the brains.
And Danny is so heart, has got such a great big heart all the time, both as Dan Aykroyd and as Ray Stantz in this movie, so he was the heart. And of course, Venkman was the mouth. He was the salesman. He was the guy who always had the fast quip. And really, we used that kind of thinking as a way of building the thing.
And Winston was the backbone, right? He's the tough one.
Yes.
Ernie, we were just talking the other day about the strength that he brings to his team of guys who are sort of pinwheeling around and blasting up hotels. How did you feel you helped shape the character who was on that page?
I don't know if there's a steady paycheck in it. It was just, it was a wonderful character, and things happen. Annie, I don't know. It was sort of a different place for me. So it was a learning experience. There was a lot going on. And, you look back on it, you kind of go, oh, to me, sitting in the theater, watching it for the first time, seeing the scene with Bill Murray and the girl and the flashcards, and then seeing the librarian scene, seeing this man say, "Can I please see the?" Suddenly you realize this is what we've been doing, and this is what I was, because you're kind of all sort of making sense, and you're in the middle of something, but what it is, it wasn't clear until I think the first time I said much.
Rick Moranis was not in the movie originally. In fact, I was thinking of getting John Candy as the neighbor down the hall from Dana Barrett. I had just worked with John in his first movie, Stripes, along with the other guys, and I sent Candy our first script. I don't remember his name. Candy calls me up and he says, I don't get this, but maybe if I could play him with a German accent. And
dogs, yeah.
And I'd like a couple of big German shepherds. I said, you can't have German shepherds. There's these dogs on roof. It's gonna be confusing to everybody. And he finally passed. And I knew Rick Moranis from Second City in Canada, and I knew him just as a friend in Canada. And I called him up and I said, look, will you please read this? I have sent it to John Candy, who has now decided not to do it because I just worked with him. But I'm a big fan of yours, Rick. Please take a look. He called me, 30 minutes after he got the script, and he said, John Candy's crazy. This is great. I want to do this. And he really invented. I told him we didn't really have a character. We knew he was going to be an annoying neighbor. That's sort of the idea that we had. He's just sort of building this character for himself, line by line, costume by costume, and he just did a spectacular job.
His whole body language, it's one of the great performances. Yeah, just beautiful. Wore his heart on his sleeve. He just loved Louis Tully, yeah.
William, what do you feel you were able to bring to Peck, and what qualities were you most proud of layering into him?
Well, I think what I said was that he's one of those people, he had little and he got to some kind of place where he could wear something like a suit and had some kind of power. And it's one of those times when you haven't had anything, you finally get something and you're not going to give it up. And that's what it was. Also, there was another interesting thing when Theone Aldrich, who did the costumes, and we were talking, and I was trying to visually think how to embody that. And we made a couple of decisions. And the decision that she first suggested, which I realized was really genius from her, was that we keep me looking the same. I never change my suit. I wear the same thing. We make a little Phi Beta Kappa pin that he wears all the time because that is signature thing and his signature accomplishment in life so far. And maybe change the tie, but just a little bit because you don't want to get too crazy. And just a little here, a little there, and then you show your power. And if your power is contested, it's obviously unethical and wrong and deeply insulting. And that's how the path of life is for him. And I didn't find that hard. Also, it's a collaborative thing. I could come up with all these ideas, but in the scenes that we have with how Ivan orchestrated all of it, and we all were, everybody else was so cool. It was New York, and we all kind of semi-knew each other and what we were doing and everything, and it gave a wonderful platform to you had the other characters show you who you were. And that's, when you have really great actors like Murray and Dan, and Ernie, and they, you know, how they react to you shows partly who you are, and you respond to that. So it was a real kind of learning experience, and it just went strata by strata by strata. That's how I remember.
Ernie, you and I, we just spoke earlier in the week, and you told me some really moving and powerful stories about the reaction you've gotten to Winston over the years from African American viewers, kids. You ran into an actor in a bank, and I thought that was a pretty great story. Can I get you to tell about those experiences and encounters? How Winston became a point of pride?
Yeah, you know, you get the job, you do the work, you know, you envision it a certain way. You don't think of, if I say this line, people will remember this line. You know, you're not thinking about. It amazes me. 35 years later, you guys come up with lines. You know, this job is now worth $11,500 a year. I never thought anybody would even hear the line. People still remember the line. So, but I have run into over the years a lot of people of color, not just African Americans, but who say they were very, very happy that Winston was in the movie. And but I was right after the movie came. I worked a television show called St. Elsewhere in Denzel, Washington. I did 8 episodes. Denzel was my doctor on the show, and I saw him in the bank, and he came up. He said, "I saw Ghostbusters." He said, "Yeah, I really like it a lot. I love that character. Thanks for not embarrassing me." And as an African American, I knew exactly what he meant, and it's kind of hard to sometimes explain to people outside of the community because so many shows you just feel the character is compromised in a way, and you feel it reflects on you. So I think Winston, and even today at this event, a couple of people have come up and said how special it was to have Winston representing it in the film. So
You know, from day one, I wanted Belushi and Eddie Murphy in the movie. So I was writing the parts for both of them when John died. I was writing John's line, a scene between myself, a character, and we didn't know who the other one was going to be. But then, of course, after John died, it all got stalled. And I always wanted Eddie in the movie. I thought he'd make a great Ghostbuster.
thanks, Danny.
I'm glad it worked out the way it did. I love that.
Yeah, well, we could add Eddie too, and you and all. You know, hey, you know, he would have enhanced it in a way, but no, it worked out better this way, much better, and because
Winston's got the heart. He's got the tools. He's got the talent. There are a couple other actors who aren't here. Well, one is gone, Harold Ramis, and I wondered if you guys could talk about your memories of him or your favorite stories of working with Harold on this movie.
You know, smart guy, a wonderful man, and I met him along with Belushi and Bill Murray back in when I did I was fortunate when I started working with the National Lampoon magazine to do an off-Broadway theatrical show where they were all working together, and that's where I met Harold for the first time. And I always felt I had this great secret because Harold was the one who didn't get hired by Saturday Night Live. And when I talked to the National Lampoon magazine about doing a movie, they said, well, look, if you ever do a movie that's based on the script that we have here in this sort of running stage show, then maybe you'll get to produce it and perhaps even to direct it. And so most of the cast, Gilda Radner, Belushi, Bill and and Harold, everyone got picked up except Harold. And so I said, Harold, let's go write a script that's based on our show, because that way I get to do it as a movie, perhaps, if we could ever get it made. He started writing, and that movie actually became Animal House. And it was really the beginning of my career and his career. And the secret that I knew was that Harold was as strong as Bill Murray was, and John Belushi was, as Gil was on that stage. Because he performed with them every single night, and he stood really strong. He just didn't have to get on Saturday Night Live. And so when I got to do Stripes, I immediately thought, well, Harold should co-partner with Bill Murray, that they would be great together because I had seen them together. It was this sort of secret knowledge that I had. And it was a great pleasure to sort of work with him. And we ended up working together about 5 or 6 times in our lives, and really I always thought of him as this brother of mine, and it's really a terrible sadness to have lost him when we did.
Dan, how about you? Any thoughts, memories of working on
I miss him
Ghostbusters
as a
with him?
collaborator. It was wonderful to write with him because he was so knowledgeable. Although he wasn't a believer in the supernatural, he knew all about the research that was being done around the world. All the paranormal departments and universities and the work of the Maimonides Dream Lab and Dr. Roll and the ASPR. He knew all that stuff that my great-grandfather had turned on to me through my dad and my grandfather, and he knew all those references. And then, of course, he knew what we were trying to do, to marry all of that real vernacular and all of the real science to the ghost movies of the 30s. Abbott and Costello, Bob Hope and Bing Crosby, the Bowery Boys, they all did ghost movies. And so he knew exactly what we were trying to connect with here, and he was just a great writing partner. And wonderful to work with as an actor, and just one of the funniest, most intelligent, kind of non-hysterical people I've ever met.
Ernie, any thoughts on Harold?
Yeah, you know, I've been working as an actor for, what was it, 84, it was in 84, right? 83 when we started. So maybe about 15 years I'd been an actor, but I'd really started working in film and TV a couple of years before. So this is kind of, it was different. And these guys, I love them dearly, but you know, there's a little bit of insanity involved in the arts. You know, a lot of things going on, and it's moving really fast, and I'm trying to sort of keep up and make sense. Harold was always, for me, the go-to guy. Harold, he would always take the time, we always talk about it, and he would look at me when I was kind of going, what the hell? And Harold would go, Ernie. And then it's like, I knew it was okay. I learned a lot from just the way he conducted himself and he carried himself. And it helped me to sort of remember to always keep my balance. He always seemed to be balanced, and I appreciate that about him. I've always felt very close to him, I think because of it, because I learned a lot from him.
It's a wonderful thing to see him smile, to make him laugh. That was a big reward.
William, how about you? What are your thoughts on?
Well, I didn't know him before. I didn't have a great deal to do with him making it, but every single time I had anything to do with it meant something, and I found him a man of extraordinary goodness and great taste. He had an innate, deep taste about what was good, what was appropriate, and he was calm, but you always felt that whatever insanity was going around, he was marshaling in his head in a way that was going to make everything good. That's how I felt. You could trust his criticism, and that is a great thing.
Ivan, can you tell us about casting Annie Potts as Janine? She brought that great voice, not her natural voice, but she made it as Long Island, tough working girl. Like, what did she bring to the character?
Just a wonderful actress, and with great ranges. You could see from the wonderful things she's done on television and other films. She was just great fun to work with. She was just a real person, you know, in this sort of insanity. And I thought she didn't have to say much in this film. We didn't write a lot of stuff for her. She has more to do in the second movie, but she was immediately likable and made sense as a New Yorker because of the character and the voice that she created for herself. And we added the red hair, which she's really not a redhead. And she made this sort of indelible impression.
She's over it. I love that scene, your first scene in the movie, Ernie, where she couldn't care less about the Loch Ness Monster or ESP, and you couldn't care less about that either. Like, I've never seen such a dramatic scene between two people who don't care about what they're talking about. Any memories of shooting that scene?
Yeah, no, I think that was the first scene that I shot was that scene, and then we went to the containment unit with Danny and the big Twinkie, and it was just very, and she was wonderful. I mean, I consider her a good friend. I mean, obviously, I don't see her very often, but I just really appreciate her. She's wonderful.
We actually have a video from her, a message to you guys. So even though she couldn't be here from afar, she's going to be on the screen. So I guess we'll cue that up and roll.
Hi everybody, it's Annie Potts. I want to thank you for coming to share our 35th anniversary of Ghostbusters with all of us. I'm sorry I can't be there, but I'm on a press junket elsewhere. I wish I could be there. Thank you all for 35 years of devotion to maybe the funniest film of all time. Thank you.
I think we're ready to open it up for the fans. If you guys have a few questions, how should we select them? You want me to call on them?
Raise their hand. I got a microphone. They can just ask the question right over here. Hey, everybody.
All right.
Came over here. We question right here. Quick, quick. There you go. Your question.
I can't keep it.
Hi. Since
He's always here.
take another question.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay.
What was your favorite moment during filming the first movie? For all of you, yes.
For all of you.
Well, I had an apartment above Columbus Circle around on the 60th floor. And the night we walked Mr. Stay Puft down Broadway, I was up there watching the extras respond to Ivan's direction. And it was as if Godzilla had entered Manhattan. The way they were reacting, they did a beautiful job of reacting and fleeing down through Columbus Circle. Real people, real extras, real police cars, real stunt players, and got to watch that from a bird's eye view. And when I saw that, I said, yeah, $1 million make-believe for sure.
Ernie, your favorite moment?
I don't know. There was so many. Just shooting in New York, shooting on the street, seeing how the fans sort of came out and just reacted. Yeah, it was great. I probably working with Danny in that car scene, talking about the end of the world. Which is really wonderful.
With you anytime, sir, anytime.
Driving the car across the crosstown traffic, and the car kind of broke down. But it was magic. It was a lot of. It's hard to pick out.
And stealing shots all over Manhattan, stealing shots in the car and on Broadway and Fifth Avenue. Yes, Maddie.
What was the hardest scene to shoot while filming the movies?
Hardest scene to shoot?
The stuff on stage, Ivan, like the temple, the wind effects, the lights, and that was kind of grueling.
It was really the first time I was doing visual effects. And we built the set. The production designer was John DeCure Sr. He was about 85 or 86 when we did the film. He's one of the most brilliant production designers in the history of Hollywood. He was nominated at least 18 times for Academy Awards. And he created this remarkable set. He's the one who really thought of the doors and that remarkable rooftop that's on that building, and helped sort of us figure out how the hell we were going to do whatever it was that we had in our script. And you're talking about what my favorite scene was. That was the hardest, doing everything on the roof. My favorite was, on my way to work one day, because I was in a hotel just across the park, and I remember the doorman coming up to me and saying, "You shooting in that building on Central Park West?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, there was this terrible earthquake there. You know, the ground had come up because the crew had built this thing, and everybody thought it was real, that there was some kind of opening in the ground that had screwed up a car." And I said, "Oh, God, this is good. Okay."
William, what was your favorite scene?
Well, real quick, just two things, kind of mirroring what Dan was saying. When on Central Park West, for those 3 nights when they were shooting, I think some of the biggest stuff. Excuse me. This was all pre-CGI. All of those lights, everything was so beautiful. It was so extraordinarily, almost cataclysmically beautiful. It was one of the most moving things that I've ever seen, and I've never had an emotion quite like that watching anything I've been in or watching a production going. It was truly remarkable. And what Ivan was saying about the design, the art design, the art in Ghostbusters it's incomparable. It's just gorgeous, and just to see that was amazing. The other thing was the mayor's office scene for me.
I love that scene.
with Bill and David Margulies, who was terrific, and that was really kind of fun magic time. That scene for me.
My question is for Will. I understand that you, from the commentaries and things, that they really dropped that shaving cream on you. How did that feel?
It felt like shaving cream. It felt like shaving cream.
A really big, heavy load of shaving cream?
Well, no. I think they put somebody. I said, I got a little worried because they said, well, we're going to drop the shaving cream, and I asked how much did it weigh, and they said 150 pounds. And I said, oh, okay. But like 100. I remember in Earth Science, 150 pounds of feathers and 150 pounds of lead is still 150 pounds. So I got a little worried, and so they went, oh, Jesus, what are we going to do with this guy? So they put some poor guy in there, I don't know who did it, second AD or something, and they let it go, and it kind of knocked him flat. So they put a little less for me ultimately.
You were right. Walter Peck was right again.
Close shave. Here's a question.
I know in the courtroom scene in the second movie, Bill talked about putting on the Proton Packs. Were those things really that heavy in both movies and the slime blowers? Because I know you guys wore the slime blowers. Were they really all that heavy?
The packs that everybody have manufactured and you're all wearing today, they're about the weight of what we were wearing. They were heavy. They were 150 pounds. They were heavy metal. There were some rubber ones that Billy preferred to use. So I always put the pack on. I didn't use the rubber one because I don't trust myself as an actor to show that weight. I could have faked it and put a rubber one on and pretended it was 150 pounds. No method. I'm going to put that thing on there, and it's going to be the real pack. But no, they were really, really heavy. But Billy did use the rubber one, which looked the same.
Gentlemen, I just want you guys to know the strength of your movie. I was 8 when it came out. I had a tremendous fear of death, like beyond uncontrollable. When this movie came out, it gave me all the courage to, face my fears, and I still use that on my little ones in my family, and it works. So I want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you very much, and that's why I enjoyed the girls' film, because it also gave those little girls a chance to fight their demons, so thank you guys.
We love Lady Ghostbusters, we do.
Is that part of the story, Ivan, the idea of laughing in the face of death?
Yeah.
Let's take another couple questions, maybe.
Right up there.
You got the mic?
How about a Ghostbuster here?
Hey, so what's so fascinating about the movie, and this is for the director and the writers, is that you managed to start it so grounded with just a couple of guys, 3 guys that got fired from their jobs to try to start a business. By the end of the movie, you've got a giant marshmallow man walking down the street. Can you just talk about the process of getting us there? And we were all there for the ride. We went there and we loved it. So just talk about the process of developing that.
think Harold, I think he was suggested that we set it in the university. I think it was you and Harold really that I thought that's where we should start.
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to pitch this story in a real way, and bring all the brilliance of Danny's imagination into a kind of a realistic setting. I always thought it would be much more powerful in a contemporary New York that we understand. So a large terror dog in a condominium or an apartment in New York is much more interesting than seeing it run around in some fantasy-scape where everything is sort of made up, and that was really the heart of it. My greatest fear was the Marshmallow Man. The Marshmallow Man was in Danny's original treatment,
but not at the end. It was kind of in the halfway. Yeah.
You know, as one of many extraordinary creatures, but it even in that script with so many other things, it stuck out as a kind of a really wonderful but kind of goofy idea, and it was the thing that I was the most worried about. I thought, we get away with everything. I'm not sure if we're going to get away with the Marshmallow Man. And Sheldon Kahn, who's here somewhere, I think, who edited this movie and edited brilliantly, managed to put the movie, we shot from around middle of September till the middle of January of 1984, and February the 17th, I think, we had a screening on the Burbank lot of the movie, his very first cut, and it had very few special effects, but fortunately we were doing much of what we did live. So, in Dana's apartment, the eggs are really cooking for real. And but when the guys were shooting their Proton Packs, of course, we were going like this and pretending things were coming out of it, but nothing was coming out of it. We had one shot with the Marshmallow Man. It was the very first close-up of the rubberhead way back in the distance in Soho somewhere, walking against the skyline of Manhattan. And I'm watching the movie. The movie is playing extraordinarily well. It was probably played as well that very first screening as I had ever seen it. And I kept going, oh God, please, I hope this Marshmallow Man thing is going to work. And I knew I had that one shot to sort of help explain it. And as soon as that head bobbed around in that wonderful way that it does, the laughs, the screaming, and I said, oh, thank God, it's good. We're going to get to the end, all right.
Well, that
he was a sailor. When I said the Viking, I said, I want a benign, benevolent brand symbol like the Michelin Tire Man or the Pillsbury Doughboy or the Angelus Marshmallow Man. In Canada, we had Angelus marshmallows, and he was a top with a little star. And the Viking said, okay, and then he mails me the initial renderings, and I opened it up, and he's made the guy a sailor like that. I doubled over, I couldn't believe, I laughed for 10 minutes. And I thought, this is going to be so good. And in the movie, of course, Bill improvises, and he's a sailor, he improvises the line. Yeah. Mr. Stay Puffed, we love him. Some people skin here today.
I think that brings us to the end.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you all a lot.
You guys, Ghostbusters.
Yes, stand up! We love it! Fantastic!
Woo! He wants to know.